Let's be honest for a second. Idle games are everywhere right now, and it's not hard to see why. We're all busy, a little tired, and sometimes we just want a game that doesn't demand our full attention 24/7. And then you add cats into the mix? Yeah, that's an instant win. Cat Hero Go takes that chill, idle experience and spices it up with Chinese-style warrior kittens, and somehow makes it both relaxing and exciting at the same time. A full squad of heroic cats fighting for you while you sit back? Hard to say no to that. In today's video, we're diving straight into Cat Hero Go and breaking down the best hero cats in the game with a detailed tier list. We'll talk about which cats really carry your team, which ones are solid picks for progression, and which ones might look cute but don't quite pull their weight. If you're new to the game or just want to optimize your lineup, you're in the right place. Sit back, relax, and let's figure out which warrior kittens deserve a spot on your team. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking cats in Cat Hero Go. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Shui Jing and Sun Xiangxiang. You know that moment when a character looks useful on paper, sounds clever in practice, but still leaves you slightly unsure whether to fully trust them? That is exactly the vibe Shui Jing brings to the team. He is a mage built almost entirely around freezing enemies, and when his active skill goes off, he attacks all enemies with a chance to freeze every single one of them. His basic attack also gets upgraded to hit the front row with another chance to freeze targets for 2 turns, which sounds great until you realize most of his real value comes later. He deals more damage specifically to frozen enemies, so he really wants the freeze effects to land consistently, which does not always happen. Now here is where Shui Jing gets a bit weird, in a fun but questionable way. His final passive triggers when he dies, increasing the chance to freeze all enemies and restoring health points to allies based on his own maximum health. On paper, that sounds clutch. In reality, it means you benefit the most when he is the first one to fall, and that is never an ideal game plan. The healing scaling is not impressive enough to justify sacrificing a mage early, so he ends up feeling like a utility cat that never fully commits to being damage or support. Useful? Yes. Reliable? Not always. Sun Xiangxiang, on the other paw, feels like that chaotic teammate who might save the run or do absolutely nothing. She is an archer focused on crowd control, and her active skill attacks all enemies with a small chance to stun or freeze them for 2 turns. When it works, it feels amazing. When it does not, you are just staring at the screen hoping something procs. Her upgraded basic attack targets the enemy with the highest attack power and steals a percentage of that attack for 2 turns, which is genuinely clever and occasionally very satisfying. The problem is that Sun Xiangxiang's entire kit depends on chances lining up perfectly. Her defensive passive can stun or freeze attackers if they hit her for more than half of her maximum health, but again, that is another conditional situation that might never happen in a fight. She is not bad by any means, but she is very situational and heavily reliant on luck rather than consistency. In Cat Hero Go, that puts her firmly in the B tier zone. Fun, flashy, and occasionally brilliant, but not someone you build your whole team around unless you really enjoy rolling the dice. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Zhuje Liang, Genji, Zhao Yun, Hua Wu, Guocha, Diao Chan, and Cao Cao. Zhuje Liang is one of those mages who makes you feel smart just by putting him on the team. His active skill goes straight for the enemy back row, cuts down their rage, and even has a solid chance to silence them for 2 turns, which can completely ruin enemy momentum. That alone already makes him annoying to deal with, but he does not stop there. Every time he uses his normal attacks, he hits the enemy front row while also healing 3 random allies, casually mixing offense and support like it is no big deal. What really pushes him into A tier territory is how much value he gives over time. His team-wide passive restores rage for everyone and hands out critical rate and precision buffs that last for 3 turns. In longer fights, this feels incredible because your whole team just starts cycling skills faster and hitting harder. Zhuje Liang does not steal the spotlight, but somehow the entire team performs better just because he exists. Genji is the definition of a comfort pick. Her active skill heals the entire team and even comes with a high chance to cleanse crowd control effects, which instantly makes stressful fights feel manageable again. When things get messy, she presses one button and suddenly everyone can breathe. Her normal attacks also quietly heal herself and the ally with the lowest health, so she is constantly doing small supportive work even when her big skill is on cooldown. On top of that, she is surprisingly hard to take down. Once her health drops below 60% for the first time, she cleanses all crowd control effects from herself and restores some health, giving her a second wind when enemies try to focus her. Genji does not deal damage or create flashy moments, but she keeps teams alive so consistently that you really feel her absence when she is not there. Zhao Yun is the kind of assassin that gets scarier the longer the fight goes on. His active skill hits all enemies and increases its damage for every defeated target on the enemy team, turning him into a snowball machine once enemies start falling. Early on he feels solid, but once the battlefield thins out, his damage ramps up fast and suddenly he is deleting health bars. His basic attack upgrade lets him strike 3 random enemies and apply either burn, bleed, or critical injury, which already adds chaos to the fight. Then, his final passive ties everything together by increasing his damage for every unique damage over time effect on the enemies. The more debuffs spread around, the harder Zhao Yun hits, making him incredibly satisfying when everything lines up. Huatou is pure support energy, and he fully embraces it. His active skill heals the 3 allies with the lowest health ratio and boosts the attack of the strongest ally for 2 turns, which is both defensive and offensive at the same time. He also protects himself with damage reduction whenever his health drops below certain thresholds, making him harder to burst down than you would expect from a healer. What really makes him special is how much insurance he provides. He constantly heals the strongest teammate at the end of each turn, and even when he finally goes down, his death restores a large amount of health to all allies and applies a permanent damage reduction buff for the rest of the battle. Huatou is the kind of cat who refuses to let things go wrong, even after he is gone. Guojia thrives in battles that refuse to end quickly. His active skill hits all enemies, applies critical injury, and reduces their incoming healing for 2 turns, which is extremely annoying for sustained heavy teams. His normal attacks also steal rage from enemies, either taking a large chunk if they have enough or siphoning a percentage if they do not, constantly slowing down enemy skill usage. The real magic happens with his team-wide passive. Every time Guojia acts, the entire team gains a damage buff that stacks up to 30 times. In drawn-out fights, this turns your team into an unstoppable force, scaling harder with every passing turn. He may not look explosive at first, but if the battle drags on, Guojia quietly becomes one of the strongest enablers in Cat Hero Go. Diaochin is all about pressure and momentum. Her active skill targets the back row and marks the enemy with the lowest health for 3 turns, making them take more damage. When that marked enemy dies, the entire team gains an attack buff that stacks, which means every kill just makes the next one easier. She turns clean executions into team-wide power spikes. Her basic attacks weaken enemies by reducing their attack, and even in death she refuses to be ignored. When she falls, she applies bleed to all enemies for 3 turns and debuffs their stats for 4 turns, leaving the enemy team in a terrible state. Diao-chan feels like controlled chaos, constantly pushing fights in your favor even after she leaves the field. Cao Cao is built for patience. His active skill hits 3 random enemies and becomes stronger every time it is used, scaling with turn count and rewarding longer battles. His normal attacks target the front row and apply critical injury, setting up enemies to take even more punishment over time. Everything in his kit leans into extended fights. He deals extra damage to enemies with critical injury, and his final passive grants true damage to his basic attacks that also scales with turn count. The longer the battle lasts, the more terrifying Cao Cao becomes. He may start slow, but if you give him time, he will absolutely take over the match. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Zhou Yu, Sun Quan, Sima Yi, Lu Xun, Lu Bu, Liu Bei, and Guan Yu. Zhou Yu is the kind of mage that makes you immediately understand why burn teams are so scary in Cat Hero Go. His active skill hits the entire enemy team, applies burn to everyone, and then casually heals himself for half of the damage dealt. That alone already makes him feel unfair, but it gets better. His normal attacks are upgraded to hit the entire front row while also applying burn, meaning even his basic turns are constantly spreading fire across the battlefield. What truly pushes him into S tier is how perfectly his kit feeds itself. He deals increased damage to enemies that are already burning, and every time an enemy gains burn, Zhou Yu boosts his own attack and armor piercing. So the longer the fight goes, the hotter things get, and Zhou Yu just keeps scaling. He is not just strong, he is consistent, self-sustaining, and absolutely oppressive when left unchecked. Sun Quan is what happens when a tank decides to also be a team-wide safety net. His active skill hits 3 random enemies with true damage and grants all allies 2 stacks of Fortify for 3 turns, which immediately raises the team's survivability. On top of that, enemies that attack him risk getting stunned for 2 turns, making him incredibly annoying to deal with on the front line. His strongest trait, however, is how much damage he absorbs for the team. His passive increases his maximum health and allows him to take 25% of all incoming damage for allies for 5 full turns. That is huge. Sun Quan does not just stand there soaking hits, he actively protects everyone else, making him one of the most reliable tanks you can build around. Sima Yi is a tank that refuses to play passive. His active skill attacks all enemies, applies counterattack to himself, and can taunt targets, forcing them to hit him. Counterattack dealing. True damage is a massive deal because enemies hurt themselves just by touching him. He turns aggression against the enemy in the most literal way possible. The deeper the fight goes, the harder Sima Yi becomes to kill. His block increases as his health drops, he restores health after blocking multiple times, and when his health falls to certain thresholds, he heals himself again while dealing true damage and potentially taunting enemies. He feels less like a wall and more like a punishment system for the enemy team. Lu Xun is the perfect enabler for burn-focused teams. His active skill attacks all enemies and applies Fire Oil, a special effect that cannot be dispelled and lowers burn resistance, making enemies take significantly more burn damage. His basic attacks also spread burn to multiple targets, ensuring the entire enemy team is constantly affected. What makes Lu Xun truly terrifying is how well he scales with Fire Oil. His basic attacks gain true damage based on the number of Fire Oil stacks on enemies, turning him into a serious damage dealer on his own. Pair him with someone like Zhou Yu, and suddenly the enemy team is melting faster than they can react. Lu Bu is raw violence wrapped in orange fur. His active skill hits 3 random enemies and applies bleed, while his basic attacks strike the entire front row and apply even more bleed. From the very first turn, he is spreading damage over time effects everywhere, setting the stage for brutal follow-up damage. As allies fall, Lu Bu only gets stronger. He gains stacking buffs to attack, critical rate, and critical damage, and once his health drops to 30%, he enters Bloodthirst mode. This boosts his attack, defense, and speed, while enabling lifesteal, turning him into a self-healing monster. Lu Bu thrives in chaos, and the more desperate the battle becomes, the more unstoppable he feels. Liu Bei is a support who wins fights before damage even happens. His active skill attacks the enemy back row while granting allies Dragon Shield, a special buff that completely negates a crowd control effect. His basic attacks can also dispel enemy buffs, making him incredibly disruptive despite not being a traditional damage dealer. He also provides value from the very start of the battle. His team begins with Dragon Shield stacks, and once those shields are consumed, they punish enemies by applying random damage over time effects. Liu Bei does not heal, but his preventative tools are so strong that teams often survive situations they never should have. Guan Yu is the definition of a duelist. His active skill always targets the enemy with the highest attack, and every use grants him a stack of spirit that permanently boosts his skill damage. These stacks cannot be dispelled, meaning once he ramps up, there is no stopping him. He sustains himself through shields generated from his basic attacks and restores rage whenever he lands a killing blow, allowing him to chain skills back to back. With a flat attack increase at the start of battle, Guan Yu comes online immediately and only grows stronger. In one-on-one situations or clutch moments, he is absolutely terrifying. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.